So whenever Drew is ready, we will get started. By the way, thank you for Saturday, Drew. Appreciate it. Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for taking time out of your Saturday to come to give the town feedback about the future of the Lions Hall building. I just wanted to give a brief rundown of who we are and how we're suggesting this process works today. We weren't sure whether we were going to have every chair full here at 10 or 2 people. So we've kind of come up with a starting process, but we're absolutely flexible about how we proceed from there. So just to give some introductions, my name is Kirsten Hildenan. I'm the Administrative Support Coordinator for the Town Manager. This is Dave Wally, our Director of Public Works. And coming up here with the sign-in sheet is Doug Cole. He's our new Assistant Director of the Recreation Department. The 3 of us are going to be taking your feedback, taking your ideas, and bringing them to the town leadership and the town council eventually. As I posted in a legal notice, we may at some point have a quorum of town councilors here out of interest as residents of the town, but as this is a staff-led meeting and not a council-led meeting, no official business will be taking place. The way that this is going to work today to start is that we're going to take comment from all of you first. So we're going to give you the opportunity to speak. We ask that you limit your initial comments to 3 minutes. After everybody who has wanted to speak has the chance to speak, we'll happily open it up to repeat comment at that point in time. At the end, if you have questions, you'll be able to ask them if time permits. But we want the foremost action today to be those of you who took the time out of your day to be able to attend and speak on this topic. Because this can be broadly construed as an advisory meeting for a public body, in that we are going to be providing the information obtained at this meeting to the town councilors, we are proceeding under the requirements of 91A. So we will be compiling official minutes. Your comments will be entered into the public record, and they will be available just like any public record of the town for viewing and reading later. So just please be aware that when you're speaking, it is recorded. We are live on air, and it will be on record. So with that, we can get started.
Do you have a secondary sheet back there too?
There's 4 more sheets, yeah. So for those of you who just came in, if you know that you would like to speak, we just ask that you sign in on the back. And we'll take this sign-in sheet first, and then we'll move to the next one. Do you want to run? You want to call people?
Sure. Yeah.
So, all right, Dave, take it away.
All right, great. Thank you, Kirsten. I just want to thank Kirsten for putting this meeting together. All along, we were struggling with the best way to kind of get the community's input and whatnot. And so I thank you very much for organizing this, and Doug Cole for being here as well. Because, like Kirsten said, we can try and answer as many questions as we can if time allows at the end of it. And certainly, if we don't have time today, my office is always open, phones on, whatnot, or emails, and we can correspond back and forth that way as well. But today is really about just hearing from you folks. This is your time, so we really want to make sure we give you as much due time as possible to get your opinions and voices out. So that being said, the first person that has signed up, and I don't mean to butcher last names, I'm used to mine getting crushed all the time, so, but Peter Sage? Perfect. Oh, all right. Thank you.
And when you come up, if you could just speak your name and your street address, please.
My name is Peter Sage, 24 Elwood Road. I'm a contractor in town, and I would just like to offer my services to fix the floor for cost. A first floor deck is pretty straightforward, and if I could see it, I could look at it, maybe get an assessment, have my engineer look it over, and submit it to you guys.
Oh,
simple.
fantastic.
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, if we could probably get some more information from you for that. I don't want to enter your personal information on
Yes,
record.
exactly.
We can talk after.
You want me to write it down on the
Sure.
back again?
Yeah. Thank you. Appreciate it. Deb Paul.
Deb Paul, 118 Hardy Road. I don't want to see the building torn down. I'd like to see it stay kind of like it is. Without saying, it's reasonable to assume that that area is considered our center of town. And so therefore, I believe that it should have that quaintness to it that I believe that building does give. I'm getting nervous with the time. I'm sorry. So anyway, my thought is, since you're getting all this information, and we've spent so much money already with all these studies and engineering things, it would be reasonable, beyond a doubt, to fix the water issue, jack the building up, fix the water issue, the supports, fix the floor, make the building usable. I believe that would cost around, $400, maybe $500, according to the thing that you had handed out when I was on the council to everyone. That being said, take steps in fixing it. It's like when you buy a house. If you bought an old house, what would you do? You'd fix the things to make it livable and then take it little bites at a time so that it doesn't burden the taxpayers. Plus, it's giving you time as a board to do what is right, having integrity about what the people want to do with this building and how it's going to function and operate moving forward into the future, considering it is an anchor in that area of town. So that would be my proposal or idea, is to basically leave it as is, stabilize it, get the floor done, and maybe do some of the ADA stuff just for the first floor, and leave everything the way it is until you know exactly the way people want to stay. And then this way, because this is a hard economy right now, it's hard times. And this way, it's not such a big hit to the taxpayers this year. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb. If I'm bringing them up too quickly, are you cool? Okay, good.
I'm recording.
Oh, okay, all right, make it easy later. David Ellis? Yes, sir. Yeah, and if you, should have probably said, if you prefer to sit or stand, yep, absolutely, whatever your preference is.
David Ellis, I live at 1 Wilshire Drive. I got 5 items I want to quickly mention. First of all, this is the oldest public building in town. It was built in 1770. I think that repair, restoration and preservation is extremely important. I think it should be added to the historic district. That doesn't cost the town anything, I don't believe. I believe that an application should be made to the state for a roadside marker. I'd be more than willing to help do that. And lastly, looking at the Weston and Sampson proposal, that seems to include a lot of expensive discretionary stuff unrelated to repair and restoration. So the question that comes from that is the benefit or revenue from that from any envisioned future use worth those discretionary costs?
Great. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
John Perez,
I'd like to give my time to my wife, please.
yield, okay.
Christine Perez, 5 Wesley Drive.
Just, so to be clear, I'm sorry, because I see John signed and then you, so you yielding your time to Christine's,
Let's go after me.
oh, he wants to go after, you
I,
want to
as
go?
a
I
state
see.
rep, will help you get that sign. Okay? That plaque. I have to go along with the fact that, well, first of all, I have a question. Why is someone from the Recreation Department here? That's not a recreation building or function.
We'll answer any questions at the end.
Okay. I think the thing that scared me about the proposal, besides it being about $3.5 million, is the fact that it didn't include, it's my understanding, fixing the water problem underneath. I think I'm correct about that. And it also didn't include having the kitchen, everything you need in a kitchen for a kitchen, okay? Which would be another huge cost. So I think we're getting closer to more than 3.5 million. I understand the historical value of that, the building. I don't understand why it was never made an historical or applied to the state to be an historical building. We only have 2 buildings actually in town, one being the Grange, that are part of the New Hampshire Historical Building Group. I don't understand why that building was never done. Someone said because it had been moved, but in what I read on that website, I don't think that interferes with it. Right. So I just don't understand if it's, and I don't understand why we haven't utilized that building. How long has the Lions Club have it? They've had it for years and years. The town hasn't utilized that building in all that time. Why it's so important that the town has to have it now and has to utilize it immediately. Therefore, based on that, I feel very strongly, fix what's underneath it. That should be a number one priority. Fix the floor, get the toilets working, and then decide what you're going to do with it. We cannot afford, I'm a senior, we cannot afford $3.5 million or anywhere near close to that with our taxes the way they are now.
Thank you. Again, I apologize for my confusion. John, would you like to speak now?
I have questions, so I'll hold till the end.
Hold till the end?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Dennis Martin?
Dennis Martin, 182 Pillsbury Road, Londonderry, New Hampshire. My thought is, to be honest with you, to knock the building down, because if you repair an old building, you're just putting Band-Aid on it. And I also would like to see a hockey rink go into town anyways, you know, especially for the high school hockey team. I think there's plenty of room over there to put an outdoor rink for people to come and use. Plus, if you did something like that, you can use the rink for many things besides just hockey, and you could use it, like, for example, when they do the Wednesday night concerts. If it rains, they have a building to go to. Doesn't have to be an elaborate type of hockey rink like, you know, the Snoon Arena, but you can do something with a roof over it and basic, you know, things to cover from the weather and so forth. And you know, at $3.5 million, you could put a brand new building over there. It's you know, I know, I just like to see something different going in there, and a brand new, something that can be used to multiple purpose, not just for hockey. You know, whatever it is. I mean, whatever the town decides, I'll be okay with it, whatever they do. But I just think a new building needs to go in. That the building's old. It's old. And if it's not on the historical site, historical society or anything like that, then the building needs to come down. It's just too old, you know. So, thanks.
Thank you. Frank Holdsworth.
I yield at this time, thank you.
Okay. Jerry Galatian. Thank you.
My name's Jerry Galatian. I've been in town 40-something years. I don't know exactly how many. I live at 14 Brookview Drive in Londonderry, New Hampshire, and I finally had to say something. I am a Lion, by the way, so everybody realizes I'm a Lion. What has been done here, first of all, people should know the reason why the Lions had to give up the hall. I think most people don't know why. And the reason was the floor problem, which you're well aware of, that the small area of the floor that kind of buckled under, and it's a relatively new floor, so it shouldn't have happened, obviously. And the fact that you people, the governing body, well, not necessarily you people, provided us, the only help you provided us was to tell us that we couldn't have more than 50 people in it at one time and that the floor had to be repaired. I'm sure you realize what that did to our organization. It took most of our money away from us, which is nonprofit, which goes back to the townspeople. An example, we've given over $200,000 in scholarships to the kids at the high school. Your Lions did that. That's just one example. I won't bore you with a whole bunch of details. You guys fixed a roof years ago. You put a new floor years ago, and you paid for it. We paid very little towards it. We took care of the building as we were supposed to, year after year after year, 52 years to be exact. We have done nothing but to support the town in that location. What's going to happen to the building and why it should happen? Oh, yeah, one more thing I want to throw out. At the council meeting last week, I heard somebody say something about a water stream. Well, let me tell you, I've been in Alliance 15 years, and like I say, we've had the building for 52 years. There is no water stream. We've had guys crawl under there to try to repair things on the old floor and stuff like that. As I stand here, I checked with everybody I know in Alliance all the way back to Sherm Packard, and there's never been water under there. Where that came from, I don't know. And if that's one of the excuses you're using to get us out and do what you want to do, then that's wrong, because you're either not telling the truth or you're mistaken. I don't know which it is. I have no way of knowing. I'm not an engineer. I feel that the best thing and most useful thing, even to this day, is give it to the Lions back. We'll continue to sell the trees. We'll continue to do the yard sales. We'll continue to support eyeglasses. We'll continue to support hearing aids. We'll continue to do all that and put hundreds of thousands of dollars back to the people. Every penny goes back. And this is what I call something that's community. So I stand here against the whole situation. I know we've gone forward on it, but you have to know the reason why we gave it up and gave it back to them. It wasn't our doing in essence. It was the lack of support from the town itself, and the fact that there's some repairs that usually would be taken care of by them, but not now. And finally, no matter what comes out of it, all of a sudden you're going to be paying taxes on it, which you don't pay on it for the last 52 years. I give up.
Thank you, Jerry. Sue Jodry? Yep, close. All right. I'm trying.
Sue Jodry, 23 Peabody Row. So I agree with Deb Paul in that it's such a staple in town. At least it's something in that area to look at, to be nice. And people have told me I'm on the Historical Society, I'm on the Demo Delay, I'm on the Heritage Committee. I've been in town 61 years. Like I said, it's just a staple to have. And if we could, I don't know if it's that big allotment we have to spend. Can we do the basics, do the bad stuff, like the floor, the water problem, a little bit of the kitchen, microwave type of little things to just get by, so to speak. That would be good, because I've had people tell me, I don't want to look like Manchester and I don't want to look like Nashua. So at least we have this little area that looks old and supports our town, and that's, I guess that's all I have to say. But yeah, if we could spend this the minimal, I guess, to preserve it and keep it going, and that would be nice. Okay.
Great. Thank you, Sue. Ann Charajessa? Champa. Well, there you go. You gave yourself away. I apologize.
How many times that I've said Ann Champa, 28 Wedgewood Drive, behind this microphone?
I got to brush up on my
Mr. Holy
reading of.
Excuse me, Mr. Wally.
I'm pretty sure at this point, Ann, it actually autocorrects every time I type in AN. It just gives me that whole thing.
Okay, now, this building's been around for a long time, at least the center portion of it, which was William Morrison's meeting house. It was a meeting house. It wasn't just a place where they went to say their prayers and have masses, as I would say it as a Catholic, but it was a place where they did public business, voting, meeting, celebrations. So calling it a church or anything like that is wrong. It was a town hall from day one when it was built. And it was built by, just think about this, first and second generation that came over here, the Scots-Irish from Ireland, Northern Ireland. They were the ones who built this building. You got to think about the history going back. That breaks my heart to think it would be just torn down because people think it's old. Well, I've been inside it, and I thank Mr. Wally for taking me inside to take a look at it. I was very interested as the curator of the Londonderry Historical Society and a past president, along with Kirsten. And what I found was amazing. I went from the, thank you for letting me into the vault. Mm-hmm. We went up to the attic. We looked through the peak holes to the tin ceiling underneath that we can uncover and show its beauty in that building. It's really an amazing structure that is sound. It's just it had a bad job of repairs in 2014 on that floor. We need the right people to fix it this time and not do a half-ass job. What I don't think we need is a massive deck out front, which would hide a lot of the building from the street, as far as I'm concerned. If you have a big platform of granite, you won't, if you're down on the street level, you won't be able to see the beautiful entrance. I think we should highlight that front entrance, but not put a massive deck in front of it. It just takes away from the history of the building. I think we should make it handicap accessible if we want to truly make it a public building. That's what it needs. And not just the first floor, but the second floor. We can't ostracize the people who have weak knees or can't walk as efficiently as us, I should say, us 7-year-old younger people. As far as it being on the New Hampshire Register of Historic Places, it should be. It should have been done by the town a long time ago. But maybe, I hope, Dave, that you will look into it. I really do. Because it deserves that honor. It deserves it. It also provides for space in the town. Space that's so needed by this town.
Anne, I'm going to have to stop you there. We can pull you back up in a bit, okay?
Okay.
I just want to give everybody a chance to give their comments first, okay?
Okay, one last thing. And in 2014, when I first got interested in what was happening in the building, when the floor was had issues, there was no water under it. It was dry as a bone, just in response to the gentleman from the Lions Club. Thank you very much, Kirsten, for the extra few minutes. But I think this is important, and I wish the public had heard about what your plans were before they spoke, so they could give some comments back about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne.
Thanks, Ann. Larry Casey?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Larry Casey. I've lived at 35 Forest Street for nearly 40 years now. I just wanted to take a few minutes to reiterate the points I made in a letter to the editor of the Londonderry Times back in September. I view this building, the structure here, as an asset and not a liability to the town. I'm joined here today. I'm representing the Londonderry Arts Council. We're the folks that put on not only concerts on the Common, but other art and music events. I'm joined by Steph Millville, Steve Lee, and his wife Julie. And I speak for myself, and they can come up and speak for themselves as well. Anyway, when we first moved to this town, it was very, very different. It had a very different, rural feel to it. And the people that preserved the historic nature of the center of town, put in place a conservation easement for the orchards that surround the town, had vision, as did the founding people of Londonderry, the people that built that structure. It's a critical asset to this town, and one of the things I like to do when we're running concerts on the Common every Wednesday night in the summer is to stand on the Common and take a 360-degree view of the center of our town. Look at the town forest that Ken Allen was so instrumental in preserving and upgrading. Look at the building structures, the churches, the Grange Hall, the monument on the Common, and to look at this building, this structure. And it really, all of those buildings frame the heart and soul and true center of this town, regardless of the fact that we have a main street at the Woodmont development. This is the main street of town. What I'd like to see happen in terms of utilization of this building moving forward is to have it brought back to a usable condition, make sure that it is handicap accessible, but also available to organizations in town, you know, where people can gather, like-minded people can gather, you know, to share ideas and move things forward and help make Londonderry a better place, people with common interests. So I view this as an opportunity to create a community center that can be used by the Londonderry Arts Council. We have programs right now that are on the shelf because we don't have suitable facilities available to us to run art programs or to run music programs. Feedback we got the other night at our Art Council meeting was that people who love the music that we put on the Common in the summertime want to know where do we go in the wintertime for a similar experience. And this is just one example of how we can leverage this town asset for purpose like that. And again, it's not just the Londonderry Arts Council. There are many other organizations in town that can be using this space to make Londonderry an even better place to live. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Larry. Just a brief announcement, because I've noticed that there's been a lot of people showing up a little bit late and whatnot, so if you can just make sure that you've signed in at the back, in case we'll grab that, because I'm getting to the end of I'm getting to the end of this one, so I want to make sure that we don't overlook anyone. Jim Butler? He stepped out. Okay. John Wilson? Would you mind grabbing me the next sheet? Thank you.
John Wilson, Tranquil Drive, and for what it's worth, I've lived here about 52 years. So I've seen this building many days of the week going by it. First of all, I guess I question the very fundamental process by which we are approaching this building. Okay, the building has been there since 1845, and prior to that, it was down at the end of, I guess, Pillsbury Road. So it's the oldest building in town, and I suspect there aren't a lot of buildings in the entire state that are much older than this building. So I think most people would agree that the building is worth saving. Okay. So if you get past that decision that it's worth saving, then the question is, how do you go about that? And I think instead of rushing in after the building's been there for hundreds of years and coming back with this proposal, okay, which I think is basically throwing money at a project without really thinking it through exactly what the town should do, what we can afford, and what we're really trying to accomplish. And I think the first thing after we decided we want to restore it, I think, is to make a decision what that means. And from my perspective, it means it gets restored the way it was back in 1845 when it was first moved there. And by the way, I don't think the whole building was moved there. I think the back section of the building was moved up from Pillsbury Road, and the front was actually an addition after it got up here. But in any case, I think we need to preserve the building in its original state. And that requires a lot of technical talent as how to do that. For example, someone mentioned this earlier, it's ridiculous if you're going to restore that building to its original state to put that front porch or whatever you want to call it onto the building. It should be done as if it was 1845 and you're trying to restore it. So I think we ought to make a decision about what we're doing. If we're just trying to take a 200-year-old building and make it functional, okay, and that's the only thing we care about is functionality, then you ought to just tear it down, because you can build a building with that amount of square feet if all you're after is functionality, and move on. But if you really want to restore the building because of it really represents the beginning of this town, then you ought to think hard about exactly what it requires to build. to do it. And it's going to be whatever you think it's going to cost, it's going to cost more. A couple of years ago, I spent the better part of a year restoring a 125-year-old house. And let me tell you something, as much as you look it over, every time you open something up, you get another surprise. Okay? So it's not going to be easy. But the thing, I think the decision has to be made. Do we want to restore it? And then make certain we understand what restoration means. Okay? It means that's the importance of this building. It's not its utilization.
Thank you.
But you have to decide what you're going to do. And this is a poor way to approach it because you're not going to get anybody who wants to spend $3.5 million to get that.
Thank you, Mr. Wilson.
Thank you. Yeah, I know, but John had signed up twice. Okay, all right, I must have just signed the other one. Yeah, why don't we complete the first list before I move on exactly to the second? So.
We'll come back to questions.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So, John Perez, just to be clear, would you like to speak, or?
As long as I can ask questions, yes.
Oh, all right. So we'll do the questions at the end.
He has to leave.
Oh, okay. Jim Butler,
I'm all
So,
set.
you're all set.
Yeah, I'm here to listen.
Okay.
Mr. Perez, if you'd like to just come up and ask your questions, we'll answer them at the end, but they'll be on the recording. So if you'd just like to give us your questions,
Sure.
we can do that.
Yeah.
And then, you'll have the recording available to you.
Okay.
So.
John Perez, 5 Wesley Drive. My questions are this. Of what I've seen so far, either presented, plans-wise, I come away with the perception that this may already be a done deal. And if it's a done deal, then why are we here? If it's not a done deal, my question would be, is this building in some kind of way going to be restored, and is it in the town's 2024 plans? If it's in the town's 2024 plans, do we have money allocated in the 2024 plans? Do we already have preferred contractors lined up to do the work? And have we hired any new employees already to do what these plans say they want to do? If the answer is yes to any of that, my perception gets even stronger that this may be a done deal, and this is really nice that we're hearing people's opinions. That's my questions. If you can answer them or not answer them, that's fine.
I have, or we have, I should say, 1, 2, 3, 4 more.
Okay.
People to speak.
Sure.
And then, if you're still here, I'd be happy to address yours too if you're on a time constraint.
I'll be leaving in 10 minutes.
Okay. All right.
So
Okay.
my wife will still be here.
Be here. Okay. All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Dan Gore. Gare.
Or
Gore.
Good morning, Dan Gore from 8 Lane Way. So I would love to see some of the ideas that have already been described, the idea of multi-purpose use of this property. And while the easiest way to do that would be to just tear it down and use the space, everything on that property, I don't advocate for that. I do respect the history of the building, but I don't think that has to limit us to, if we simply restored it, then it would be as it was, and I think still have limited use. I think this gives us an opportunity to do more for our town. One of the things I think that we've struggled with in the last 20 years, perhaps, is forward thinking for our town, actually making investments in capital improvements and things. And I understand that the economy has been tough, but it hasn't been tough for 20 years. It waxes and wanes, right? We were forward thinking when we built Moose Hill School, but now we're already looking to do more there. We invested in the fire station, Central Fire Station, but that was necessary just from a capacity standpoint. Here, one thing that we chose not as a town to invest in was a theater and an auditorium. And that is still a huge deficiency in our town. We are one of the only towns in New Hampshire that does not have an adequate performing space, or really any performing space dedicated to the arts. It's a consistent black mark against our schools, and it is a huge black mark against our town. And including Larry Casey's point, you know, the town common gives us an opportunity to do some things in the summer, but even that is very limited. The stage is inadequate for most things other than small performances. And what we don't have to do is a $10+ million theater, auditorium, 850 seats and such, as was proposed a few years back, although I would love that. Wouldn't actually fit there, I don't think. But there are other options for performance and multi-use spaces. You know, essentially a black box theater, if people are familiar with that term, is basically just a big rectangular space that can be used a lot of different ways. And so I would propose that we do restore the building and restore the character of the building, but then we expand it and actually create a larger space where we can have 150 to 200 seating capacity that can be done in various ways, auditorium style, in the round, whatever. That's one of the benefits of like a black box theater space. It could still be used in the ways it was in the past, but as was mentioned by Ann, other gatherings as a meeting house, political candidates, towns, school gatherings, and it would be a revenue center for rentals and such. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie Millville?
Stephanie Millville, 15 Raintree Drive, and thank you for the opportunity to speak on the Lions Hall. I, like Sue, have lived in Londonderry my entire life, and I remember when we had the Lions Hall available to us for different events. I've been to multiple weddings. So I do think the building should stand, but I think that without a plan to know how we're going to use it, I don't think we'll get the taxpayers' support behind us because we already feel burdened by taxes. But we have to make it a priority and maybe look for ways to cut taxes or spending in other things and prioritize the Lions Hall. I would propose, similar to what Larry has said, as well as Mr. Gore, that we make it a space for the arts, but also a sense of community. As the town grows and we get more big box stores, I think there are less places for us to just go and celebrate who we are as a town. So I would propose that we go slower, but keep the building and use it as a community center or meeting house. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your time. Peter Sage?
Oh, he was just giving you his contact information. He was the first person who spoke with you.
Oh, correct. Okay. All right. He added his. I got you.
All right. Is there any?
As one, Martha Smith. Yep.
Good morning.
Martha.
Thank you for having this listening session and letting us speak to this issue. 38 Chester Drive.
Thank you.
Sorry.
That's okay. Thank you, Martha.
I could have found yours in past minutes,
I
too,
realized
so.
I realized I forgot an important item. One thing that I want to point out first is I think that this meeting should have happened way before this. The use of the building for the community is the most important part of this decision. And whatever state the building's in, what people have said about the value to the town, Ann Ciampa's obviously very passionate about history. I think that that's very important. I think that other uses that people have brought forward today are also very important. And I just regret that we have spent a lot of money already, a significant amount on engineering to get these plans before this meeting happened, and you really found out from the community what they wanted to do with this building because it has always been a community building. Thank you.
Thank you, Martha. Dave Plaza.
Dave Plaza, 207 Pillsbury. Looking at the budget for this building, $3.8 million. A lot, but not enough. To restore an old building, I've done a couple in my life. You know, whenever you start tearing walls apart, you always find something extra. You know, whether it be water coming in, the foundation, the structure, you cut up, open a wall, oh, you got to replace that board, that board, that board. I've seen buildings where it was cheaper to support it, cut out the wall, put a new one in, you know, because you just couldn't fix it. So there's numerous things to worry about in terms of, you know, structural integrity of that building. It's a nice building, all right? It's old. I like old buildings. I've saved some myself. But it's vinyl sided. What did it look like in 1850? You know, do we want to bring it back beyond the vinyl siding and the 1970s glass window door in front of it? So, I mean, these are things that we have to look at. A lot of people brought up some very good points up here. I'm scared of the budget. I mean, everybody's always complained that our town taxes are going too high. You see the signs around here, too much money is being spent in town. And especially where people didn't have much of an input to this, I'm concerned. So one of the things I would like to see is, yes, to save it, but yeah, to bring it back, it's going to take time and money, and that's nothing that we can do just like that. You know, the Lions Club, this sounds like they've done some really good work over the time with the town, and donations and scholarships, etc. Some fantastic things. But the question is, how else can we do this without spending $4 million? And I can see it going higher. Thanks.
Thank you. Ray Breslin?
Ray Breslin, 3 Gary Drive. I got here late, and I didn't see any handouts, so was anything new presented other than what was previously presented?
No, Ray, we're doing any sort of questions at the end. This is just for taking comment right now.
Okay, so you didn't present anything?
Not at all.
Okay. All right. So, I mean, I've spoken about this before, but the building is historic. I think it should be saved, but what needs to be done to it to stabilize it is the question. The most important thing on any old building is the roof and the foundation. I don't think there's necessarily a problem with the roof at this time, but it seems though there's a vision here by some, and we've spent a lot of money with engineering on this, and now we're having a discussion, which is very important. But the most important thing is the foundation, the floor, and the drainage. That's what needs to be addressed. We also need to figure out what the building's going to be used for. Apparently, some people have already decided what they're going to use the building for. We need to hold up here and get full discussion from the people as to what the building's going to be used for. I don't think that's happened, and we're spending money on engineering with a vision to do work on the landscaping, to put fence around it, put a porch out front, all very nice. All very nice. I'm not sure that's historically nice, but the bottom line is this. We need to think what the priorities are in this town. With all due respect, this isn't necessarily a top priority. It is something that needs to be addressed, absolutely. We do need to figure it out. But we're also spending a lot of money with Weston Sampson on the water issue, perhaps even the sewer issue, and others. That is a priority. This is a secondary priority. But apparently we've already decided we're going to spend $3.5 million. How much? 80-something million dollars just on the outside? We need to rethink this before we move ahead. Unfortunately, we've already moved ahead. So please, listen to the people. You're spending their money. Thank you for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Ray. That's all I have in front of me. Are there others that have signed in or have not been afforded the opportunity to speak? I just want to make sure that we do. Okay. I can. Why don't you come on up, sir, and I can either take your name or you can write it. I don't want to give anything away.
That's pretty good. Dave Lundgren, 21 King John Drive. I'm sorry I'm late. I've got a question. Has the Lions Hall, I know I've been here 47 years, and it was here when I moved in. So is it registered with the National Historic Deeds?
Is he in fact going to be the last to speak? Because I can. It's a question.
I mean, the audience just answered it.
Okay.
So.
The audience responds no. No, it is not.
Oh, it's not. Okay. Well, because I had investigated another building in town a couple of years ago as a, not an entertainment center, but as a, thank you. I need all the help I can get. Anyway, the reason I'm saying that, if we could get it registered, federal money is very reasonable to get. And I think that we could probably build or renovate at a real low cost, whatever we wanted. But I don't know what the years are as far as registering and the process. It's just applications into the federal government. And obviously we have people that we can contact to get it done. But I just wanted to throw that out just to complicate things, Dave, for you, okay?
No
Thank
problem. Dave, just to make sure, did you sign on a sheet back there, or could I add? Okay, there's one more back there. If there isn't one back there, Dave. I'm sorry? If there isn't a sheet back there, I can. No, there's one. Okay, perfect. As long as you're signed in. Just. What's that?
Would you like me to answer the questions we have already?
Yeah, if you want to do it that way, or if you want to have them come back up, or whatever.
No, that's okay.
I just want to make sure we've concluded the.
Deb, yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask one more thing, or say one more thing?
Yeah, if you'd like to make a statement, that's fine. Yeah.
Sure.
That's fine. Yeah. But
Thank you all
again,
for
the
bearing with
idea.
us. This is the first
Yeah.
time we've had one of these, so we're really kind of working out the progress. So I really appreciate all of your patience.
And again, today is really hearing from you, so we want to make sure we provide all the ample amount of opportunity for you guys to speak. So if there are other people that would like to come back up, looks like we're on good timing here. We're not even into the first hour, so I'm fine with that as well.
Deb Paul, 118 Hardy Road. As I was sitting here thinking, it brought to mind a building in Derry called the Upper Village Hall. And they did that in pieces, like I had suggested at the beginning. And what could happen if you do take your time in doing this is that it would allow a time for people to put together the Friends of the Reverend Morrison Meeting House. And, you know, we have a lot of big businesses up at the airport. I know they pay in taxes, but it would be nice if they could sponsor, and they could do this through this separate organization as opposed through the town. And you know, all of them, like FedEx, UPS, Pfizer, FW Web, all of them contributing, and we could put a beautiful plaque inside saying their names, and this way there would be even lesser of a burden on the taxpayers. So that's a reason to think about, take our time, because let this group get together. I mean, I'd be more than happy to head it. Get a group together to do this and to get that money to get it done as opposed to burdening everyone. And plus, this has a special place in a lot of people's hearts because there's been weddings, baptisms, birthday parties, parties after funerals. It has a lot of connections to a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Deb. So how do you want to handle the questions?
I was going to just answer the ones that we had first and then let people come up. You can call people up at that point.
Sure.
Cool. All right, awesome.
If you don't have answers, some of them I can provide.
Yeah, I'll answer the ones that I can, and then I'll get back to you. So sure.
So Kirsten has been taking down some of the questions that some of you brought up with your comments and concerns. So we're going to try to address those now, and if you have more, then we'll bring you back up for further clarification. Then, just to be clear, before we close public comment, if you will, is there anyone else that hasn't been provided an opportunity to come back to the microphone? Ann, you'd like to provide another comment?
And Champa.
Champa.
Thank you.
I got it. I'm struggling with my penmanship reading here.
Okay. If I repeat it a few more times, would
Not
that
how
help?
many people use scriptive
Okay,
anymore. Yeah,
Thanks.
so. Personal.
We can't wait with this building, especially with the floor issues. That's something that needs to get done. It's on the CIP as #1 priority. And I think we need to at least attack that. Get professionals who are qualified to do it, to repair the floors, and then whatever's underneath. We all know, because there's so many pictures of what was done last time in 2014. We need to get that done. There's no waiting. And as you once said, Mr. Wally, the longer we wait, the more it's going to deteriorate. We need to stabilize it as well as we can. I know you'll do that, because we have winter coming, and that means if we don't heat it, there'll be cracked walls and probably crumbling plaster. So we need to take care of it. We need the floor done, and we need it secured for the winter. And I trust the town to do that. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ann. Champa. Yes, sir.
I just wanted to reiterate that I liked what David said, Dr. Lundgren said about get it on the historical society, I guess what we would call it, and look into getting federal money if you're going to rehab the place. That's a great idea, I thought. Thanks.
Thank you. All right, so why don't we move on to answering the questions, because I'm sure some of that information is important to get back to you as well. So,
Sure. Yeah. So, Representative Perez, your first question was as to why Doug is here. After Doug got hired, he and I had the opportunity to work together on a number of different things, and I realized that he has a lot of experience in the past working with both recreation programs that use spaces like this, or working with other towns and recreation directors that have in the past. He's a really valuable source of information, and we really value his input. And he has some experience. One of the things people have talked about is coming up with fee structures, revenue structures. He has experience for that. So after Doug had started, he and I were talking, and I invited him to this session. That was my invitation that I issued to him.
Can I ask more questions on that?
Can I answer your husband's first, and then we can come back to you? As to, is this a done deal? No. And the reason we are here is because we do want input, and Dave can speak more to that. As far as do we have preferred contractors at this point, the answer is also no, not at all. And we have not hired any new personnel in regards to this project at all. No. So those are the ones I can answer, and then I will kick it back to Dave for the rest of them.
Sure. So yeah, preferred contractors, no, we do not. You know, if we were to move to the next level of any final planning, again, this is only a conceptual idea. There are no finalized plans. There are no drawings other than what you see in front of you. There's no electrical schematics and diagrams and plumbing and all that. This is a general layout of the facility. If we were to move beyond where we are now, if the voters approve to spend their taxpayer money, I want to kind of clarify that we don't have the authority to spend the people's money at all. In fact, any money that has been spent to date has been at the approval of the town council. And so to that end, there's no preferred contractors. The historical inquiry, I have a little bit of experience in that. From my previous employment, when you get into it, it is not on the town or any state or federal listing, but we recognize and understand that there is obviously a fond community connection to this building, as some of you illustrated about events that have gone on there over the last several decades and whatnot, and so there's an emotional and historical value to the community and connectivity to this building. And so when you do enter into those types of, and I'm not saying we should or shouldn't, that's really up to a lot of people's input, but when you do enter into those arena, arenas. Some of the gentlemen here tonight, today, illustrated that, it's vinyl sided and whatnot. There are a whole different set of guidelines that comes into how you restore a building of this age, the types of materials that you use. You then do have to use a pre-qualified list of selected vendors for restoring a historical facility. And it changes a little bit sometimes on what your useful purpose of the building could be. It's done in a variety of different ways throughout the state and all across the country, for that matter, when you use the federal list. Even there's a difference between, as I've learned, that there's a difference between being on the state registry and being a federal historical list as well. Yes, there is money available to help you in those endeavors, but the cost is driven pretty exponentially because of the types of materials that you're tied to having to use. I can tell you unequivocally, vinyl siding does not fall on the list, so that would have to be removed. The original clapboard siding would have to be looked at, dealt with, and the materials that you put back have to be in concert with what those regulations impose on you. I think you answered a little bit about the employees, and that's really probably perhaps even not appropriate for even us to answer. The town manager is the one that hires or deals with employees within the town. And so as far as 2024 money allocated, no. The money that has been spent to date has been, again, approved through the town council or the town manager's office, and it is not a done deal. I will just say this, that we're obviously in some very difficult and sensitive and uncharted waters. The town found themselves a little over a year ago, found themselves in a position of taking ownership of a facility that hasn't really received any true upgrades, if you will, to the necessity of opening that facility to the public. The bathrooms aren't in compliance, the kitchen's not in compliance, the ADA is not in compliance, and then there's obviously what we discovered through the initial evaluation of the facility is that there's a lot of concerns with upgrades that need to be done to the facility if it's going to become a public and municipal facility to meet the standards that are required of one. So that's a big challenge. In order to just dive into a public, everybody gives your ideas, it was decided to at least have a product before you. The task was laid out that if we're going to try to open this building back up, knowing what we know about it, at least from our first blush at it, some of you made the point about opening up walls and everything else. Absolutely, there's a lot of contingencies that have to be thought out so that if we get into something and we find a substructure really rotted out and things like that, they have to be dealt with. And that's certainly a concern as well when you take on a project like this. There's no question about it. But we had to have at least something for us to get a general understanding as to if we want to take the building and reopen it tomorrow and at least restore the way it was being used prior to it closing, but underneath the town government having full operation and ownership of that facility. What's that general cost going to look like, and how do we do it? And so that's what's in front of you. And now we go from here. We made some general, I guess, assumptions that, I really don't think that the ADA ramps and the grade changes that we had to do in the front to get there was going to be an eyesore. If we just put up a general ADA ramp there, I don't think that, even myself, and just professionally, it would have been an eyesore. So we tried to come up with a way to disguise that. This is one of 100 ways we can do it. It could be scaled way back. It could be bigger. But we had to really change that grade out front. And obviously with the safety concerns of vehicle traffic and the way that it kind of enters the property right now, that's what addressed in the parking layout. And so knowing some of the functions that go on there and how we announce the parade at Old Homes Day and whatnot, we kind of said, well, wouldn't it be nice to create an area that could be used for maybe that purpose, and then also admiring some of your comments about overlooking the common and the general heartbeat of the town of Londonderry, if you will. There's a reflection area there, some seating, and so that's kind of how that came about. There isn't even I mean, you see an actual artist rendering there. There's no, we didn't take grade shots or anything like that. We know what we had to be at, so we extrapolated from that. But that's not a final design by any stretch of the imagination. It's just an idea to how will we disguise the ADA compliance, give it a little bit of a grander presentation so cars kind of slow down and show some interest into what this facility might be, and not just blow by it at 50 miles an hour in that stretch of roadway. So that's it. Are there any others that, if I missed a question, I apologize.
The only other question we've gotten is it on any sort of register? And at this point, no, it's not on any sort of state or federal register.
No, it is not.
Or a federal, or a state or landmark.
No.
Christine, would you like to come back up, please?
Come back up. We'll just go by show of hands.
Christine Perez, 5 Wesley Drive. Is there a reason we have a historical society? Is there a reason this was never put on a registry? The Grange is on the registry. And as far as having to use specific materials, I've done a lot of investigations with this. And I know at the town council meeting they brought up that it comes with strings. I understand it comes with strings, but it also comes with a lot of money. A lot of money. I've looked at some of the projects that the state has done recently, and the percentage of the amount of money that they put in helps. So I just don't understand why, if this building has been such a center of a community and everyone is so passionate about it, why was it never applied to the historical? You can do it online. I went online. That's my first question.
Can I just take you one at a time?
Yeah.
Is that all right? So I don't know that I can wholeheartedly tell you why it hasn't been on the registry for many years. I don't really know. I do know that in speaking with Ann Champ has been integral in helping us understand a lot about the history of town. I've learned a great deal from her. I understand they have their own struggles, so perhaps that's a better question posed to them, why they didn't,
It
why
was a
they didn't come.
hypothetical. It was a hypothetical.
Yeah.
Anyway.
And I will tell you this, and again, thank you to Ann and David as well. They invited us, myself and the town manager. We went for a tour over in Derry of a similar project over there and similar time structure and whatnot. And after their second LCHIP allocation, they were cut off because of the cost. And it's been I believe it's been 12 years right now, still trying to finish that project. And they think there's going to be another 5 years. So there's a lot of challenges with that. But that's our experience right now and our knowledge.
Okay. And I have not heard one person who took the time to be here say, yes, let's go for $3.5 million and see how much more it's going to cost us. I have not heard one person say that. And I think it would behoove the town, had they brought levels, we could do this, option 1, and then do this option 2. How much money have we spent on all of this so far over the past 2 years?
Yeah, so the evaluation or assessment of the facility was $18,700. That was I get a lot of dates in my head.
Oh, I don't care the date.
It was shortly
in 2022.
shortly thereafter. I believe it was October of last year,
Okay.
and then October of this year we ended up with this particular effort was $18,750.
I'm sorry.
$18,750. So a total of both of these contracts was $37,450.
Okay,
That's where we are to date.
It's $37,450. Okay, my concern is this project didn't start until July. Is that my understanding?
I'm sorry?
This project did not start until July?
The original contract date signature was around that time frame. Yes. I
Okay,
can
so
get it for you.
July. We're talking a couple of months ago. Why didn't you come to the town then and say, we have this building. What would you like done with it? I said at town council, you put the cart before the horse here. And there are a lot of us that know that perhaps the intention is to have this be a recreational building and to build our recreational department exponentially. We are not Salem. We cannot afford $700,000 in salaries and recreations. So I'd rather see it go to the seniors. Put the senior center there. Not because I'm a senior, but put the senior center there. And if you want to have a rec building, use the senior center. But I just think it was not in the best interest of the town to present a $3.5 million with no other options. And now you have to go back to you should go back to the drawing table and listen to what people said. And no one said, yippee, let's spend $3.5 million to $4 million.
I guess I can address concerns. I don't know if those were all questions or statements or concerns.
Well, they were. I just think
Yeah.
you could have come with two. You could have spoken to the town first. And I really feel the only reason why we had this meeting is because a private citizen had what do you want with the building? So this was in response to a private citizen having that.
Well, I would say. Sure.
Sure. So Christine, I actually was the one who asked to schedule this meeting, and you're absolutely right. It was in response to somebody else scheduling the meeting. The only way that we know that people, that meeting, there was no staff there. There was no staff there who had been working on the project. So I scheduled this meeting so that people who went to that meeting had an opportunity to talk to the staff face to face.
And that's perfect. But my thing of it is that it took a member of the community to try to find out the concerns and the wants and the needs of the town people. That shouldn't have happened. That should be the town. You all should have come to the town. When you're talking about spending this kind of money, you should get the town input first and then go out and spend $36,000. I just think it was the cart before the horse. If we have a building, I understand it means a lot. My initial thing was get rid of it. I don't feel that way anymore about it. But I do not feel spending $3.5 million that doesn't even do anything with the water underneath, and you know it's going to be much more than that, was appropriate. This is not Manchester. We can't afford this, and we do have other priorities. The water affects everybody in town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just because some people came in, just if anybody who has come in since we closed the public comment period would like to take the opportunity to say anything to get your 3 minutes of public comment in. Anybody? Jan? We'll take Jan first and then you, sir. Just please state your name and your address for the record, and then we'll return back to questions once everybody has a chance to speak.
Jan McLaughlin, 14 Crestview Circle, Unit 151. I am could go either way as to whether we save the building or don't save the building. I agree that we have a lot of other priorities in the town that are coming up at the same time. Ideally, it would be great if we could save the building, but I'm thinking that we need to put totally new foundations in underneath it anyway, if it's going to be saved. We've spent a lot of money over the last few years on the building to stabilize the floor and to do other things anyway. I know after the senior center used it a couple years ago after the fire that we had, that there was a lot of stuff that had to be done to the floor because the floor was a problem. So I know we've known this building has problems. I don't know that it means we should just get rid of it, but I am concerned about the amount of money that it's going to cost and about the other things that were also happening at the same time. But I hate to see us lose a building just because it's inconvenient to do something with it. I'd like to see the building, if it is kept, used for some of the nonprofits and things that don't have meeting spaces now that do a lot of good in the community. The Lions Club certainly has been there for a number of years and does a lot of good in our community. And there are other organizations like the Historical Society that doesn't have a place to meet in the winter because none of their areas are heated, or the Arts Council, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot of different organizations, even the Beautify Londonderry, et cetera. They don't have offices or places that they could meet that are convenient and easy to have public comment. Yes, we could come here and use one of these meetings, but that eliminates like weekend things. This is one of the few weekend things that I think we've had here. So from that standpoint, the building would be great from that standpoint, but we do have to think about the cost versus how much would it cost to build the same building with the same type of access from scratch, and I'm guessing it would be a lot less expensive. So if that was the type of building we decided we needed, perhaps that would be better. I like the idea of putting any new things behind it, because then we can still have the access, etc. We have very poor access in this community for people who are in wheelchairs or walkers, etc. So we need to be mindful that we keep that as whenever we do a renovation, that's an important piece, that it be accessible to all people, whether they are walking on 2 legs or rolling on 4 wheels. So that has to be done regardless. So I hope that we can come to some kind of an agreement for the use of this building, and if not for the use of this building, then the use of the space for the community somehow. And that's really all I have to say. Thanks.
Thank you. Was there anyone else that has yet to speak that wants to? Sir? I don't know if they've signed in or not. Do you want to just?
Al Lamson, 31 South Parish Drive, Londonderry, New Hampshire. The picture you have over here shows the building in 3 parts. The back part with the third part, the one in the back,
yeah,
where the driveway is. Mm-hmm. There's a door there, and there's an asphalt ramp going up there. Right. How is that not accessible under ADA?
All the slopes and grades, it does not meet the requirements.
So the asphalt
and the
could
door,
be added.
the door itself doesn't meet the requirements.
All right, so a door could be replaced, mm-hmm, and asphalt could be raised or lengthened to
well,
make it accessible.
It's inside where it's a concrete ramp and it's very steep, and the turns and stuff, that it doesn't meet the requirements.
But it's not very steep. It's just maybe inches. It's not feet.
No, not feet, no.
So it's just inches. So a few inches of asphalt and a little bit of correction inside and maybe a wider doorway. It's probably 36 inches anyway.
Inside, yes.
Yeah. So it meets the accessibility inside.
For the door, yeah. I believe it.
Really
I believe
not
it
that
does.
far off
Yeah.
for an ADA.
But the ramp inside is not. No.
But it could be easily fixed. It's inches, not feet.
It have to be looked at for
Yeah.
the how long it needs to be, and I don't believe it will make that inside the building
But I
without
think
an expansion on the back.
I think what the thoughts are is to make a major expansion on the front for ADA versus improving the back for ADA.
Mm-hmm.
That's one. There's 3 parts of the building. The back part, I understand the floors and stuff are okay. The front part is the middle part that had been repaired and maybe needs repair again. Now, you mentioned over in Derry, a similar building. They've had 12 years, and then they need another 5 years. So we could look at this as a 20-year improvement, the economy not being that great right now where people don't want to pay more taxes, where if we'd looked at 20 years, the economy hopefully will pick up better and we'd have more money to do something like this. But if we could fix it now so it could be used for groups and organizations, Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, AARP, could do taxes in a building like this and provide free taxes for seniors and all people of all ages. There's a number of things that could be done with this building. Just fix that one part of the floor. The kitchen says it doesn't meet the requirements. It's got a stove, it's got a refrigerator. You don't need the fans and stuff if you don't boil oil and stuff in there, if you're just cooking with water and stuff, boiling. So that should meet the requirement. The bathrooms, what are the requirements? They got to have raised seats, or take a toilet out, put another toilet out. Doesn't seem to be major repairs to make it actually usable. If you're going to make the historical, yeah, there is a lot, but the siding is plastic, and it's maybe 75% of the houses in the town are plastic, so it works. So to keep it functional and look at a 20-year program seems to make more sense.
Thank you. Dave?
You made a comment earlier about materials associated with historic properties, one of them vinyl siding and so on. That caused me a thought. This quote or estimate from Weston Sampson, is that using materials and methods consistent with historic preservation, Or are they simply destroying the historic value of this and slapping on a bunch of modern materials with a look-alike?
Again, not having any formal plans, but the intent is to, at times, not use clapboard siding, but leave the vinyl siding. I'll give you some examples, particular to the hall. What was discovered is up above the suspended ceiling is the original ceiling, if you will, that has some of the old tin work and elaborate. It was in our presentation there at the town council meeting. And that is something that we would like to bring back so that people can see it. And
so the straight up answer is basically that even if we went with this at 2.5 million, the answer is you're not dealing with preserving a historic building. You are going to essentially destroy it.
Dave, can you speak to, I think maybe what Mr. Ellis is getting at, can you speak to the amount of the existing building, the existing structure that's there that is actually dates back that far?
Well, it's tricky because there's, and I think, obviously I think Dave and others in the room have a much probably better understanding of some of those timelines than I do. But I think destroy is a strong word. There's no intent to destroy this building, or it's, in fact, we're trying to, with some of the conceptuals that we worked on and talked about, we're actually trying to bring some of it back that has been hidden below suspended ceilings, or the front, what used to be an original office is now being used as a mechanical room, and that vault is in there, and those are some of the things that we'd like to bring back, restore. There's the tin ceiling in there too, so bring some of that original luster of the building back to be visible. There's, T111 siding used as millwork inside the hall. That's certainly not original to the timeline. So if we move to final plans, I think that's something that would be looked at, to have millwork that is more in custom with the time frame of the building itself. There's light sconces that are, Home Depot type things, and those things would be changed out, and lighting and things of that nature would try to be incorporated back. And that's tough to do in conceptual. That's why, the figure that we're at is with some general assumptions as to how much or what we could do. And then with the understanding that, when you start getting into the belly of the beast, there could be some things that you find. And I wish, just back to one other general comment that some of you made, that it was just as easy as change a toilet out and whatnot, and it's just not. The size of the bathrooms, the types of toilets, the amount of toilets you have to have, even the amount of types of toilets that we have is derived by a understanding as to how many occupants will be in the building on whatever event, and that's one of the challenges, is trying to figure out what the useful purposes of and what types of things do we see going on there. And so that's been a challenge to even communicate that to them. So we kind of went on the further end, trying to understand that, well, we'll probably have 50 to 75 occupants or whatever, and then that drives how many bathrooms you have. So, and then when you need that space, you got to start moving things, and that's where the kitchen gets incorporated into getting the bathroom space the way it needs to be. The accessibility to the second floor, I believe we did look into that, whether if we could restrict that. That could be difficult because, again, it's a government municipal facility, so the conference rooms, if you will, upstairs, they need to be accessible, because we would hate to find the town in a position where we're telling one group or organization that, hey, you can use the second floor conference room, only to find out they have an ADA issue, and then we tell them that you can't. So that's a difficult place for a government organization to be in. But beyond that, destroy is a little bit stronger term for what I think we're trying to establish here. So, Ray, if I could, yep, the gentleman behind you. Yep, yes, sir. Yep.
I just want to make a correction, and the young lady, they haven't fixed the floor yet.
Well, they did do some work on the floor after the seniors were there, because I know that was the discussion.
Right, but the incident that started all this whole process, which the floor has not been fixed.
No.
No, but
I know you
they
mentioned
have done
it.
lots of work. That's what I'm saying, is they have done lots of work, not enough, But they have
Not
done
on the
work.
floor. I'm talking,
All right.
Okay, guys.
Yeah.
anyhow.
Again,
if
this
you
is
have
a public,
the
I'm going to
floor
ask
hasn't
everybody
been
for a
worked on.
second. Thank you. This is a public meeting, so we do need to be able to capture all this on the record. So I'm going to ask that if you speak, you do come up to the microphone, please. Thank you. Go ahead, sir. Thank you.
Okay, anyhow, the floor hasn't, not just to correct that. And also, I still haven't heard the logic or reason or how they came about that there was water there. Again, I reiterate, I've checked with absolutely everybody that's been there for 20, 30 years, and we've crawled under it. There is no water that I know of. I don't know where the hell that comes from.
Yeah, I will say this. We do not have a stream flowing through underneath the building. No, that's not the case whatsoever. There is no signs of any kind of spring underneath the building or permeating water and things of that nature. Now, perhaps when you crawled under the building 20 years ago, 30 years ago, there was no water. But on the north east side of the building, some of the mortar and cracks and whatnot, and the way that the gradation comes to the building, there is evidence that water is getting under. This summer, perhaps, was a blessing in disguise with the amount of rain we've had. But that did then lead to the floor. We have some illustrations of how much the floor continues to sag and settle more due to some of that. That's not the entire issue. Some of the beams that were affixed to back when they did the floor repair, actually the second repair, as a historian in the room informed me, many decades ago, the floor actually had an issue when I believe it was around a discussion about bringing the codes into town, in zoning into town, in the late 60s. It was bringing zoning ordinances to the town. And it was a packed hall, and the floor experienced a situation then, and it was addressed then. And then you fast forward a bunch more decades, and then they had another issue, and it was repaired. And I think at the time, they did the best they could without getting into 2014. Thank you, Ann. They got into doing some repairs to that floor, and they did the best they could at the time with the money they had available, or the town had available at the time. And now you come forward another decade. Here we are, 2023 or whatever, 2021, or 22 when it happened. And so, things change very quickly in a building of this age. So with the water seepage, whenever it started on that side of the foundation, it did. But I will tell you that the water is not extensive to the point where it has caused concern for the engineers that have assessed this building, that we need to take drastic measures like jacking up the whole building, removing the foundation, pouring a concrete foundation. In their opinion, they're professional engineers, that level of expense alone is not necessary for this facility. If that is what the townsfolk decide they want to do, we could certainly look into what the costs would be for that, but they would be extensive. So they've come up with a couple of different ways that we have not formalized at all. But yes, we want to make sure that when, if the floor is addressed, if we take this venture on, that it is done in a way that we don't find ourselves another 10 years down the road saying, well, we did the best we could. We were working on some substructure of the flooring that was old, and now the screws were working 10 years ago, but we ended up with, your useful purpose changed, and you had a dance party in there that 150, teenagers, or at a wedding, and now we're back in the same position again. So we're going to make sure that if we take this venture, that floor is addressed in a way that we don't find ourselves in that position another 10 years down the road, or any point in time down the road. So I hope that addresses some more of the concerns. I'm trying to get them all in my head. I'll go to that side of the room. I'll just finish this side first if Ray would like to come up with a question. Yeah.
Okay, so I have to ask, with all of this that has been spent with Weston Sampson, has anybody decided what the use of the building is going to be? Has the town decided what they envision the building being used for? Excellent
question. I'm glad you asked that, because that's one of the things I wanted to get to. in the year plus that we've been looking at, crawling through, evaluating, and finding out, and can continue to find out more and more about the building, I think the general, at least my approach, taking direction from the town manager and with the council's approval of expenditures, has been, in learning, the history of it, in my mind, it has always been the people's building. It's been a place that this community, whether it was run by Reverend Morrison, or whether it was the town hall, or it was a private organization like the Lions there for 50 years, the community itself has always used this building at this site. And I think that needs to continue. I shouldn't say I apologize. It's a collection of, but that's my natural verbiage, but it's a collection of everything that's thrown my way. And in discussions with the town manager, we try to make sure that if, we're going to make something that is community-oriented. So again, the building was just, this venture that we've done now was just to, how do we reopen the building and get it in compliance so that we can bring it back to what it was just before it became uninhabitable to the community. So it's a community center, not a rec center, community center.
I don't mean to interrupt you, but my question is, has the town council, the town manager, decided what the use of this building is going to be when this money is spent?
I think the answer to that, Ray, is no. It's fluid. It's fluid, and a lot of that comes to, now that the town has brought before you a product, we can then continue to go down that road of what is the useful purpose. I think that's been the struggle all along, Ray, to be quite honest with you. The useful purposeness of the building, after we found out all the deficiencies with it, yes, there was a gap. We went into winter. I've got other duties to deal with in the winter, and then as new staff became available, and the town manager is a very busy man. He's got a lot on his plate. We circled back to this, and this is where we are.
Oh, okay, but look, if you're going to go into any project, you have to have a vision, okay? You have to have a vision as to what your intent is in the end, okay?
And that intent was to reopen the building.
Well, reopen the building, but for what purpose? That's what I'm
Exactly.
trying to get at,
Yes.
okay?
Mhm.
And the other thing is this, and I don't want to repeat myself, but I think I'm going to. The floor in the building is an issue.
Yes.
It has been an issue.
No question.
Going back in history.
Mhm.
It was repaired, but it wasn't repaired because now it needs to be done again. Okay, that's the bottom of the building. That's the floor. Okay, it's a dirt underneath. The beams or whatever probably aren't protected. They're probably in poor shape.
That's correct.
And so the most important thing of a building is the foundation. Okay. Now nobody. You said it would cost too much to jack the building up and put a foundation under it. Well, you better. I would suggest we get some figures on that, okay? Because that is most important, okay? We can spend $3 million, $5 million redoing the whole interior of the building, and if the floor falls down on the foundation and it's leaking underneath because we continually say, apparently there's water getting in, and we've had a lot of rain, yes, but if there's a drainage problem, it needs to be addressed. And we need to have figures on that.
Those concerns of yours are incorporated and addressed into that conceptual.
Is there cost figures for that?
Yes. Yeah, it's posted on our page. It was part of the presentation that we had the other night.
Well, I would like to see that. I mean, I was kind of hoping there was.
I can happily either email to you, or you can visit the DPW website, and that presentation from that Monday night with all the figures is right there.
It's also in the town council agenda as well.
And that needs to be. We need to inform the public in that so they can make a decision.
We did on the night that we brought it to the town council, and it was part of the agenda that night, and it was posted the next day.
I understand, but how many people were at that meeting? People are busy. Okay. We
did our due diligence, Ray.
Well,
okay.
It's one thing of meeting the law.
I mean, short of mailing it to every person in town, I don't know what, we follow, governmental procedures.
Look, I'm not here to find fault. You're trying to do a great job, and I appreciate that.
Thank you. We are. Thank you.
Thank you.
Can I, before we go to the next question, can I just speak a little bit about this kind of process when you go through, when you figured out the building versus use? And it's
Sure.
kind of, I think perhaps maybe we're thinking about this too linearly, like come up with the use, do the research, do the project, right? This is more of a cyclical project. So first of all, you need to find out if, Dave needed to find out if the building could be reopened, bar none. Because if we can't reopen the building, this session, none of this needs to happen, right? So that was step one, was to figure out if we could reopen the building. Then he takes it to town, he asks town council for permission, goes back to town council again saying, all right, this is what it says, great. All right, let's come to a starting point about what the physical space, how the physical space could possibly be configured. So for example, you know, Dan, you said, you know, we can't put an 850-seat auditorium right there. Check, awesome, okay, good. Can we build a 4-story building there? No, good. All right, these were none of these were real options, but we needed to know what the building could support before you determine a use. So for example, one of the things we hear a lot is there's no place in town for music. I've gotten that feedback for this a lot, right? Coffee house style music, small bands. Okay, so in order to know if that's even something that we can, sorry, I keep punching the mic, if that's even something that we can explore, we needed to know what the building can physically support, including what can we do to the floor to let more people in there.
And to that point, not to break your train of thought, but putting I've heard a couple suggestions about putting a brand new building and what the cost would be. And to that point, yeah, if we knock it down and we put in a new modern building, those numbers are very easy to figure out on their end. They want to know how much square footage, and then we can even make just a single floor, and you eliminate a lot of costs that way with ADA compliance and elevator shafts and things of that nature. So,
but now that we know, okay, here's our guardrails, here's the boundary box. Now we can talk about actual uses. So can we put in, you know, can we put in an elevator, for example, in this building was something that needed to be looked at. And then what are options? Can we make the whole building ADA compliant? This is what this second stage of the project was. And if after town council gave its okay to look at that, it came back and said, there's no way we can do this building, then the project would have stopped. Mm-hmm. But now we know there are possibilities to make this a community building. And I mean, I have to say, I'm gonna go off on a little bit of kind of the emotional side of things here. I grew up in this community. I went to Taekwondo lessons in that building in elementary school. I went to Panther dances in that building in middle school, and any of you with kids around my age, you know that whole thing. And then in high school, we had our drama club rehearsathons, our all-night rehearsathons in that building. And then as an adult, I've attended weddings and baptisms in that building. That building I have a strong connection to it, but I'm also pragmatic, and that if it doesn't have a use to the community, if the community doesn't want it, and I think Dave feels the same way, then it's up to the community what happens to it. So that's part of the reason why we're here is we never envisioned this, and I'm using that we language and I'm speaking for Dave a little bit here, as a building that was meant to be used exclusively for the town as town space. We're good. I mean, space is an issue in the town. Yes, we say that a lot, but part of that concern for space is space for your organizations to have a place to use, your families to have a place to rent, to have affordable functions. That's what we're thinking of for this space. Yes, somebody does have to manage that space, and that's where staff comes in. The Lions did a phenomenal job for 50 plus years as tenants. They made that space available, right? And so now we're coming to you and saying, okay, so this is a possibility. What possibilities do we want to look at? And then I will kick it back to you and maybe.
No, I think you did great. I don't want to, I have a tendency to be long-winded, folks, because I try to get everything as formal as I can, but we're getting pressed for time, so I want to make sure that we have people that have their time. This is really your meeting, not ours. Frank, if you want to come up, please.
Frank Holsworth, 2 Sunday Lee Terrace. I've been in this community 55 years, and I've watched it grow, and I've listened to some of this, and this is why I yielded in the beginning. People looking for places to go. Granted, in the 1960s, not like years 2000, this town has grown so much in all those years that some of these organizations didn't even exist, nor were they thought of. There was a time in this town where we could go on vacation, leave the house wide open, and just take off, come home 2 weeks later, and things are fine. That's not the way it is anymore. During those 55 years that we've been in this town, I've worked for the town 30 of those years, 30 plus years. And I've watched things grow, and I've watched all the schools get built, but these people that are looking for a place to be should have a place to be. But over the years that the Lions have pretty much run that building, nobody has come to us. Nobody has asked us, what do you think about the music thing? Well, what does the town think? The town gave us direction, say, well, we need an office for Butch Salidas and his crew. Okay. We have a musical thing that would like to present itself in that building. Okay. For almost 50 years, we have paid all of the bills of that building, excluding the floor and the roof. But we've kept the building warm in the winter and cool in the summer. We worked hard to make sure it was ADA accessible, although I heard you say that's not right, but nonetheless, it is accessible for people to come in that way, that need to come in that way. Yes, we were more or less displaced, but we have tried to work with the town to make things happen. So if we can make things happen and we can get these people that are looking for a place to be, yes, there may be some financial costs to the organization and to us. We realize that. All we have to do is get together and get it done. That floor is the main thing right now. To let that place sit all winter without heat.
Well, since we're kind of in a gray area here of statements and questions, the building is heated in the winter. It's just not heated to a level where people are occupying the space. So there is heat in there, so everybody understands that.
Keep it from freezing.
Correct. Yeah, it's been winterized. For those that didn't see any of my presentations and whatnot, the building has been winterized, meaning the water's off. We've drained the pipes so that because where you keep that threshold of heat kind of, at a minimalistic 55 to 58 degree range, things go wrong, mechanicals break down, and then the pipes freeze almost immediately, and you have bigger hands any problem. So in order to protect the building, we've had it winterized. So.
Yeah. Okay, but like I said, that building, I watched it be the police station, the town hall, and then the Lions took it over in the early 70s. So I'd like to be able to sit down with some of these people and sit down with the town manager and yourself like we've been able to do in the past and see if we can't come to some kind of conclusion. Why can't we get it fixed and get it done?
Thanks,
Thank
Frank.
you.
Thank you. I'll go to this side of the room now. Dave, before you come back up, I'd like to get the gentleman in the back because you've already been up twice. Actually, I think he's been up twice. my bad. And then I'll get to the back of the room. I'll work my way forward on this side of the room, if you will. Thank you.
Hi, Dan Gore, 8 Lane Way. So I have a question that you may or may not be able to fully answer today, but also just in response to Ms. Perez's statement about no one here is advocating that we spend this money. I just want to clarify, I'm actually advocating we spend more. because in order to do what I've proposed, it would require more. However, I do think that there are grants for arts that are out there, and I also, as someone mentioned earlier, sponsorship opportunities, especially with some of the new larger companies going up around the airport. Several were mentioned before. Tesla wasn't mentioned, but they're coming too, right? So that would be a larger nut, but there still could be opportunities there.
Can I answer that question / statement, if you will?
Sure.
Because that's an excellent observation. I mean, there's fundraising opportunities, there's partnerships. None of that has really been explored yet, and nothing is off the table. Nothing. That's the whole point of this, and this has been an excellent exercise, in my opinion, because we're really getting, I've had, people contact me and contact town manager or council, and council talks to the town manager, they talk to us. So it's not that we've turned a deaf ear to the community and have just said, we don't want anybody's opinion. We have been. But now we just today is about collectively listening to all of it and pulling it together. But to your point, those things have also been in consideration as a path to proceed forward. They just haven't been completely and entirely explored because we're just trying, again, with the task of what do we do to just reopen the building?
Yeah. So my questions are, because I think most people in the room today the majority anyway, has advocated keeping it and doing something with it.
Right.
And so we have a sense of what that might cost from this report. But there's sort of two other options. One would be to just raise it, right? And I think only maybe one or two people have advocated that. But that would have a cost too, right? Yes. Raising the building, hydroseeding it, whatever. So I'm curious as to if you know what that perhaps cost would be. And then on the other end, when you're talking about 3.5, 5, 7, whatever plus $1 million, safe to assume that we would be not talking about a one-time expense or a bonded structure for paying for that. I'm not a financial expert, but usually with large capital projects, isn't that how it's done?
Yes, this would primarily be a bond. There's other financial measures, but again, we really haven't. That's way down the road. First, we got to figure out what are we doing with it. Then, once the cost, that final number is come into play, we know we're somewhere in the ballpark. Or we can scale it back, or to your point, we can people could come in here today and say we want to see a bowling alley in there too. Wouldn't that be nice? So that was the
board support that one.
no,
but
but raising the property, meaning for those people that don't understand that kind of technical talk, meaning tear it down. I think pretty early on it was, and even from the sense of this meeting today, it was pretty well identified that whoever wants to try to do that is going to get probably a much more packed room than today about doing that because of the emotional connectivity and the historical value that it means to this town.
Yeah, my point is we're going to spend money one way or another.
Correct.
Because I don't think anyone's advocating to just leave it to rot.
No, the only other thing I've heard as far as if you were to take it down would be to obviously parking in the common area is a challenge, and so would be to just turn it into a parking lot. But again, to your point, that comes with a cost, but didn't really look into that so much because I think I think it's pretty clear in the direction that we're going with the building as far as not tearing it down.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just to Stephanie comes up, I just wanted to let you know, for example, there's
Stephanie,
a grant. There's a grant webinar I'm attending on Tuesday for a community center grant that it talks about how to apply for that. So we are in the process of looking at options too.
There are many other grants. One of them is, depending on the types of things that you do to the building, you can get, because you're going to change out the HVAC system, so you're using more efficiency units, so you can get small grants towards that. If we decide that we want to also use this as a kind of emergency shelter, whether it be a cooling station in the summertime or a warming station in the wintertime, there's grants available for that. That would also require you to have a generator that's a full facility generator. So all those things. So funding has really not been really completely and entirely explored because, again, we're trying to collectively get what the useful purpose of the building will be, and then that will drive where the funding sources come from. But I think it would be a variety, and there could be fundraising and other things that we've touched on today as well. So,
Stephanie Minville, 15 Raintree Drive. My understanding is today's meeting is about gathering public comment on use.
Correct.
So are there plans to have additional meetings? Because this is, it's a great turnout for a Saturday morning, but we have a lot more voters.
I'm so glad that you asked that question.
And I have one more.
And all the questions for that matter. I really do mean it. This is very, very helpful and productive meeting today. One idea that I came up with Kirsten with beyond today's meeting was to have as Ann illustrated, I gave her a very extensive tour, and I apologize. There was another community member that wanted to come to that. Again, being a very busy man, I forgot to call him and inform of that date and time, so I do apologize to that gentleman. But I've always been open and happy to bring anybody into it, and because it's been closed, and a lot of you in this room clearly have a vested interest in it. That's why you're here today, otherwise you wouldn't be. But perhaps there's a lot of people in town that never even set foot inside the building. They may have been buying their Christmas trees outside there for the last 20 years, but they've never even been inside the building. And I think that's important that we've been talking about having maybe an open house that people could come and get inside, and even if you have been inside, to see the floor sag, to see the electrical concerns, the HVAC concerns, to really look at all of the bathrooms. You perhaps didn't even know about some of the other bathrooms that are in there and where they're tucked away and whatnot, and give a tour. Because also when we talk about a building that's hundreds of years old, I think some of the people perhaps in the viewing audience and whatnot, or people that just aren't familiar with the building, they're thinking it's this really decrepit, dilapidated, beat down building. And it really is not. To give the Lions a bit of a pat on the back, they really have done their due diligence in keeping the building warm and cool and clean and whatnot and available to the community. It's just that the town and whatnot, and the Lions Hall haven't kept up with the times, as the laws are today for a municipal facility are much different than they were when they took possession of that building and the operational oversight of that facility. And so we're looking into how do we do that. One of my goals is to get that done. I'd like to before winter, certainly. I'm looking at a time frame sometime between Veterans Day and Christmas, almost try to pair it up perhaps with when, the Lions are selling their Christmas trees there. So even if people couldn't attend the meeting or didn't even know about the meeting, they might be like, oh, wow, I'm here getting my tree. I think I'll go inside and check it out. And so there is that plan. We just need to look at how do we do that with, again, accessibility challenges. So we've been exploring maybe the idea of doing a 360-degree live video of it too, so that if there are ADA challenges, at least we can provide that. But we really would like to get people into the facility because it is not condemned right now. The only issue we have is the floor. And obviously, the floor, if it were to go anymore, because we had X amount of people in there, it's going down about a foot to the dirt. But again, still, that's a legalese kind of challenging nightmare. But perhaps we could, tape off that most concerned area. So yes, to answer your question more shortly, yes, we are trying to figure out more opportunities for the public to be involved and come forward and voice concerns and view, more importantly, and really have a sense for being in that environment, because you really do feel like you're back in the hands of time a little bit there when you see something. It's pretty exciting when you explore it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I believe I attended the October 22 meeting with the original presentation.
Yes, that is available on the DPW site as well.
And that had 3 options, I believe. One,
yes.
And it included the cost of tearing the building down. Did the most recent plan include that?
We did pull a lot of the raw data from that forward, but that option was, I think, pretty clear, at least out the gate, that and the town really isn't interested in it. I don't mean to speak on behalf of the town, but in a lot of my conversations with my boss and other community leaders and whatnot, and volunteer groups and whatnot, I think it's pretty clear that tearing down that facility is not something that's desired by many at all.
That information is available to
yes.
the public. And lastly, we stand here, and I'm very passionate about keeping it, but what about the other voters? Is there any plan to actually put this as a referendum before the voters, or is it just too early for that?
I think, again, this is a fluid situation, and we will take that direction from the leadership of the community. That would be a town council, town manager decision.
Great. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Would it be helpful to y'all to have a dedicated tab on the website to all things Lions Hall? Is that something that you would want?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
I can do that.
And that's why, again, I'm going to give Kirsten some props, because she's really, myself and my position is more of a facility manager, if you will, among other things within the town. And so, you know, this is really a community type of thing. And so having her, she's been very instrumental. And that's another great point that we kind of talked about. She had come up with that idea, because I'm taking things and I'm putting them on a DPW website, and, you know, it's kind of probably not really exactly the best place, but I wanted to make sure that that information was available somewhere. We didn't have anything at the time, so thank you for bringing that point up too, Kirsten. I appreciate
And so
it.
if you all have my email address, it's plastered all over the place by now, so.
Will there be some place to put in suggestions for uses or anything like that?
It's already on there.
Yeah, thank you. Deb?
No.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, okay. I apologize. I'm doing my best to trying to keep an eye on time. And
Dave Plaza, 207
I
Pillsbury.
gotta come back to you, Dave. I'm sorry, I forgot you.
Hey, can you
I'm
hear
sorry.
me?
Yeah.
All right, Dave Plaza, 207 Pillsbury. For the mentioning of the water coming into the building,
Mm-hmm.
with the foundation, the gentleman from the Lions Club, of course, is saying no water coming up.
Mm-hmm.
Is it the grading around the building that is incorrect that's causing the water to come into the building and causing the issue?
Yes, I'm sorry if you didn't catch that. Yeah, there's some gradation issues on that side. On that side of the building
So
where
it's either flat or it's coming in towards
it's
the
pitched.
building.
It's pitched toward that part, and the way that the roof line is and whatnot in that area,
Gutters.
with the HVAC system and stuff like that.
Gutters.
That's the problem area where we see some of the impact that's affecting that. Yes.
Okay. All right, so that's an easy thing to fix. One thing I did like about some of these comments here, Lions Club, they're a volunteer organization, I do believe, and it's not a tax, it's not a line item on a town budget, except for, I think it was about 50 grand to fix the floor last time.
I believe they spent 75,000, but don't.
50, yeah, okay. I thought the initial number was 50.
I just don't quote me on that, but I believe it was
It's
higher
close
than
enough.
50.
Close enough. So, I mean, having an organization like the Lions Club take it back over would be awesome, because A, it's all the benefits to the town, and it doesn't impact everybody. Fixing the building, let's fix it, but not go crazy.
Just to answer you back on that, I think, yeah, there's no options off the floor.
Yep.
Could another town community partnership with a volunteer organization or even a private organization be something explored? 100%. What that would look like would just require more time and more effort. But at this point, nothing is off the table. So that is a venture that could be explored.
Thanks.
Thank you. Dave, I had actually waved over everybody. So Dave, if you would, please. All right.
I could get over it. I'm only going to be a second.
Sure.
I got a quick question. This Weston and
Sampson, yeah.
Sampson, what are their credentials or experience in renovating and repairing historic buildings?
I don't really want to speak to everything that they do, but they in both presentations they did provide their credentials, their years of experience, their staffing, their titles, all the different types of when I've been interacting with them, we've had not just one, but we've had one gentleman, the kind of the project manager, if you will. But there's been extensive uses of a variety of disciplines of engineers that have looked at it, everything from structural engineers, electrical engineers, and HVAC and everything else. So it's not just it's kind of a one-stop shop, but they do have a very large, and they've been doing projects like this for quite some time.
Did they point to any specific historic buildings that they have worked before?
I couldn't list them, but yeah, thank you. But they've got extensive experience in working on municipal facilities. Yeah, this gentleman, yeah.
Dennis Martin, 182 Pillsbury Road. It seems like the discussion now is the floor, as far as it's not safe and so forth.
That's where it started from,
right.
yes.
Well, almost 22 years ago, I had my wedding reception in there, and let me tell you, it was a trampoline back then. So. You should have seen everybody dancing. It was quite the interesting thing to watch. So I don't know if they put it into any thought of putting steel beams through the building. And it looks like it, quite frankly, you listen to some of the people here, that it's going to have to be raised to get something. Steel beams will last 1,000 years. But can they do that because of the well, it's not a historical building anyways, but I'm just...
It's a very expensive venture to elevate it and do that.
Yeah, but is that going to be the right way to do it?
It's one way. It is one way to do it. There is other ideas of using a flowable fill material, because the space that is between the floor and the dirt, it's not extensive. It's in some areas it's so narrow. If I could drop a few more pounds, we could slide a little bit further in there. So there's the discussion, because the floor is independent of being on the sill and sash, if you will, of the building. It's independent of it. So the whole floor could be removed. We could use a flowable fill, so now there's no more void under there, and then put the floor back on top of that. So that's another way that's less expensive, but we also need to understand, how would plumbing and piping and everything else, and obviously addressing, that would certainly solve any infiltration issues, because it can't infiltrate no more. Because there's nothing to get under. There's nothing to go through to get in there. So
It sounds
that's
like
one option.
No matter what you're gonna do, if we have in that bill, it's not gonna stay within the cost that everybody's saying. It's going to be a lot more, because like you even said it, you start tearing things apart, you open up a whole bag of worms that you're gonna have to fix things.
That is always the concern when you're looking at, a facility of this age with limited, or knowledge of everything that is with it. So contingencies will probably be larger, or in these numbers were greater than you would, like when we were talking about, if you're just going to say we're going to build a brand new building. That's very easy. They can take numbers that they know in the marketplace right now. They know cubic yards of concrete, wiring, blah blah blah. So the numbers sometimes have been a challenge for the engineers to kind of use general numbers because of what your concerns are.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. John? Okay. John? Yes.
Just so you know, we're 3 minutes away from finishing up, so this will be our last comment, and then please feel free to direct anything else towards us.
Without coming to every meeting and every department of this town to try to it's very difficult to understand this problem. But it seems to me that we should be dealing with first problems. As problems come in, we should be taking care of them. And I got enlightened today about why the Lions left. I thought, until I walked in here this morning, that the Lions had decided that they wanted to go to a new place. So they moved out, which makes sense, okay. Now, I don't really understand the relationship between the town and the Lions. Maybe there's a document that explains it, but I presume it's kind of like a tenant to a building owner, okay? Do all the rules apply to that agreement, or is there something special about that agreement?
There was a lease agreement. I myself haven't.
That's okay. There's a lease agreement.
Yes.
So the one thing I think that is apparent today, no matter what we do with this building, unless we tear it down, we have to fix the blasted floor. Okay? So why in God's name, as the owner of a building with an incredibly reliable tenant, okay, we didn't take our responsibilities as a landlord to fix the structural problems with the building that the tenant's not responsible for? We should fix the floor right now, and we have the money to go fix the floor, $200,000, I would guess at most. Fix the floor. It sounds like the Lions want to come back in, and there's a huge advantage to having the Lions back in that building, even if we're going to restore it, because the way things move along, if we decided today we're going to restore that building, it wouldn't start until at least next year, probably wouldn't even start next year, because then you start talking about all the engineering plans and all the other stuff. It's going to go on forever. We should fix the floor right now, let the Lions come back in if they want to, and presume their lease, because having somebody into that building is a very good thing, and it's also a good thing to have the Lions continue in the town. And for the life of me, I don't understand, whenever this decision was made, not to fix that floor and allow a tenant like that leave. I can't believe that we've done that.
So I can't, and I personally can't comment, because I don't really have no knowledge about the relationship between the town and the lease agreement, and it's pretty clear that at some point that it was decided that the town putting money in versus the Lions and whatnot, that changed at some point, and that has nothing to do with me or anybody up here. But to your point about fixing the floor, I think Whereas now the Lions gave the town their intent to leave. They gave their 90-day notice per the lease agreement and whatnot. And then when they did leave and the town took it over, I think that's where the town find itself in the position of, well, do we go put money into a building that it's questionable whether we should be putting money into a building, or should we have or have not done through as time has changed and evolved. And so we find ourselves in this position that we are today. So should we go fix I mean, that's another great question. Do we go fix the floor and that's it? But then what? So now we pour $100,000 or $150,000 or whatever we think that may be to just address the floor issue, and then do what? There's still compliance issues with the building, and then who do we turn it over to? Is it the Lions or anybody?
But what we do know right now, okay, we don't know about all that, what you just said, but what we do know is that the floor is preventing the Lions from using the hall, or anybody else for using the hall for that matter. And that's small money to me compared to $3.5 million, which you aren't going to get. No one's going to approve that. You know darn well they aren't going to approve that. So you should just fix the floor, which makes sense. And if the Lions wants to come back in, we let them come in, and we can modify the lease so we have some leeway going
I
down
think
the
that
road
I
to
think
make
that opens up
changes.
a bigger can of worms, because at that point, if the taxpayers were to spend money to fix the floor, there could be people that would raise concern that, well, why did you just let the Lions have it back? And maybe other people would have wanted it. Maybe a private entity would have wanted to lease it from that point forward. I don't know. It puts you on a different path, and it is one that like I said, everything is not off the table, and that perhaps is another one that we've learned here today that could also be explored.
Yeah, but I guess from my perspective, but we should have never gotten into this position in the first place.
Yeah, I can't comment to
mean,
that. I'm being given instructions on what to deal with.
To talk about how we're going to use the point, only to find out all this history about how we got to this place. No one knew about, except for a handful of people,
including the town.
Not including the town. The town must have broke. The town is the one that decided they weren't going to fix the floor so the Lions should stay.
Correct.
It's not pleasant to find these things out through this kind of a mechanism.
So, all right, at this point, we are at noon, so I'm going to call. No, so at this point, no, I think we're done with comment for this evening. Yeah, sorry. The coffee hasn't processed yet. We're done with this afternoon. Thank you all for coming. We will hold more information, and in the meantime, you all have my email. Please send it to me. I'm easy to find on the town website. I'm more than happy to speak with anybody about this. Thank you.
Thank you.